without further ado, why don't we get into
Let's
it?
do
Because
it.
this actually perfectly translates into my number 5 favorite episode. This is The End of the World.
Tell me exactly, what did you see?
I saw the end of the world.
Do you remember this episode? This is the episode with the psychic girl that can, her dreams predict the future.
Ah, yes.
Is it on either your best or your worst?
It is. It's on my worst list.
Oh, it's on your worst. We're already there. Okay.
I have The End of the World as my number 4 worst pick. So just to clarify, we're going to count down our worst episodes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 with my number 1 worst episode being the 22nd worst episode if I were to rank them all
In the
top
whole
to bottom.
show. Yeah,
so
right.
just so that you know, viewer, how we're doing this. So
number
number 4.
So this is
for
your
me.
21st,
This is my 19th.
19th
Worst
overall,
episode.
the whole
Overall,
thing.
right.
But so really, 4th worst. You hated this episode.
Yep. Yeah, I could stand it.
Well, that's so funny. I actually liked this one. Okay, let me get into the
Yeah,
plot before
do
we
your-
start
do your
dunking.
thing.
That's hilarious. The first one immediately. Okay, so our main character is this cute blonde girl named Amy. She lives at home with her alcoholic father, which is a little over the top and comedic. It's like the holidays or something is the intro of the episode, and her father's just like, "Happy holidays, honey," and he's like getting sauced like first thing in the morning. He's depressed because it turns out he's a widower, and Amy's mother died when she was really young, but we don't really know what happened to Amy's mother. They keep that a kind of a mystery. And then Amy keeps having these recurring nightmares. Well, they're not really nightmares, they're dreams. She's having these recurring dreams, and she keeps seeing the same scene. And they show us, now I get why you hate this episode, because they show this scene like 5 times. So she keeps seeing this same scene play out, which is a woman on a ladder. She's like painting or fixing a gutter or some shot, like an eaves trough or some shit. And 2 little girls playing. And then the little girl accidentally gets inside a car that is like at a house. It's in a driveway. Yeah. And the little girl accidentally knocks the car into drive out of park. And then the car runs over and kills the woman on the ladder. It's pretty obvious what we're seeing. It's like, okay, this is clearly a memory of her as a little girl, and that's her mom, and this is how her mom died, which is really sad and like kind of fucked up. That would be like very traumatic, for an
not
actual
sad
person.
enough though.
You're not going to give the show an inch. Okay. So Amy learns that, yes, in fact, this was a memory from her childhood, but she also learns, and this is where I think the episode is the best, is the A plot. She also learns that not only can she re-experience, so she's going in and seeing this, she can, if she alters the dream, because the memory, it will then be altered in the present. It alters the future. So she's almost able to time travel through her dreams. I like this idea.
Too much credit.
What do you mean too much?
You're giving it too much credit.
I thought this was a neat concept. I liked that idea that like your dream somehow is a wormhole into your past, and that like if you go back, if you have a dream of you like in your childhood and you altered something in the dream, that when you wake up, that has now been altered in the present.
Right.
It's a form of time traveling through dreaming. I don't know. I like that concept. There's some like really dark moments though. Like, so once Amy figures this out, she's like trying to alter it so that like the scene doesn't play out poorly. And one of the things she tries to do is she like, I think she like pushes her little girl self away from the car or something, but the car still like comes out of drive, and then it runs over the legs of her childhood friend. And then when she wakes up, her friend is now like crippled in a wheelchair. Right. It's like so fucking dark. And that has that thing where she's like, "Hey, are you ready to go to the
That's really mean. You know I can't do that.
So, sorry, that's my dark humor. She like calls her friend and she's like, "Hey, you ready to go to the dance?" She's like, "Why are you being so mean, Amy?" And then she's like, "Huh?" Like, 'cause she doesn't know her friend is now a cripple. And like the phone, like she hangs up and like zooms out and her friend's like in a wheelchair and just like starts crying.
Right.
Anyways, Amy uses her new ability to try to save her mother, the mother she never knew. I like that motivation. That's a good, clean motivation.
Yep.
Like I like that. It's not selfish. It's very believable. Like it's that to me is a thing. It's like if you knew you had the power to alter the future by changing the past, who the fuck wouldn't try to save people, like loved ones they lost, you know? Especially in Amy's case, because she grew up, she was so young, she doesn't even really remember this incident. She doesn't remember her mother. Like she basically grew up without a mom.
Yeah.
So she successfully is able to alter the past and save her mom, but womp womp, twist ending. Turns out that by saving the mom, the father now died. Because it was like, during that incident when the mom got killed by the car, the father like didn't go on a business trip to deal with this. But then since the mother lived, he did go on the business trip and he just like dies in a plane crash. It's like, and that's the end of plot A. That's how it starts off. Do you want me to get into plot B, or do you want to talk about plot A first?
Let's do the
Because they're very different.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like
There's some things about this one I do like.
This feels like a Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like Freddy's nightmares, and that's why I like it.
Yeah.
Because I love the Twilight Zone. This is a cool what if thing, you know?
I will tell you that the idea of this is pretty good. And they did one thing that I think really helps the episode and really tends to help any of the episodes where they do this well. One of the things where this series suffers is when the writers, directors, producers, creators can't utilize the dream, nightmare, hallucination hook properly. One thing you need to know about the show is that every episode has some element of dreaming.
Somebody falling asleep. Somebody daydreaming.
They're tying it into the Nightmare on Elm Street mythos, right? The problem is some of the episodes use this hook very well, and some of them do not.
Most of them do not.
This one's not bad, right?
Yeah,
Using it almost like that
neat.
sort of time travel piece, going back, trying to use your dreams to go back in time and sort of fix something. The problem is when you've got 22 minutes, right? That's not a lot of time. They show that damn scene so many times.
I think it's like 6 times.
And it's not exciting. It's so boring. I'm like, this episode is just so slow. Which is a shame because I could see what they were trying to do, but they didn't do it. Right. Like, they want to make a Twilight Zone episode, but they don't. And I think you're giving it credit for what it wanted to be. I'm not giving it credit for what it didn't become.
I'm giving it credit because, like you said, a big problem with the show is that every fucking episode is like, it's all about nightmares. Every episode is nightmares, right? Characters constantly having dreams and nightmares, but the dreams would always turn into nightmares. And every time the nightmare is something where it's like, oh, this could be a Freddy Krueger nightmare. But 95% of the time, it's not. It's not for Freddy Krueger. In case you're wondering, Freddy Krueger actually does show up in a bunch of episodes. In the show, he is the crypt keeper. So at the beginning of every episode, he does a little intro thing, and then he'll show up during the commercial breaks. And at the midpoint, when the A plot wraps and the B plot begins, he does some little one-liner pun thing. That's his role in the show for the most part. He is a crypt keeper host, but sometimes he's also the antagonist of the episode. There's a few. There's sometimes, like 4 or 5 episodes where Freddy is actually the main conflict in the episode. Mm-hmm. But the rest of the time, characters are just having nightmares, but they're like, they're over the top, like, they're Freddy Krueger level nightmares, but that doesn't make sense if Freddy Krueger's not causing them. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's my problem. That's one of my biggest gripes with the show is like, it wants to have Freddy Krueger type nightmares, but it doesn't use Freddy Krueger. So it doesn't really makes sense why someone would be having these over the top dreams that also manifest in the real world. Like, is the implication that it's always Freddy causing them? Because so many times, like, someone will have a nightmare about, like, oh, I broke my neck, and then the twist, they did break their neck, but it's like, but Freddy doesn't show up and go like, you know, sore neck, buddy, or some shit. Like,
or, and this happens a lot across the episodes, they have nightmares or hallucinations, but then those nightmares or hallucinations don't impact the real world. They just wake up and realize, oh, I was just dreaming.
Yeah, it's like a morality dream,
right? Which
it's meant to
really
teach them like a lesson.
Kind of sucks the wind out of the episode because it's like, well, then what was the point?
And another big problem, like we're going on a bit of a rant, but this is going to be coming up.
You'll see why it's important we talk about this.
It's very important we talk about this. One of the biggest flaws of the show, 90% of the time, you cannot tell when they're asleep, when they're awake, and it is so confusing. The lines between, and so it's like characters will act not human. Everyone acts goofy and over the top. So it's not really grounded. And very often you're going to question, you'll be like, so are they asleep right now? Because everybody's acting like a doofus. And then you realize like, oh no, he was awake for that. And then suddenly they're asleep, but like, it's so confusing. And there's so
uneven,
many, it's so like in these movies, generally it's pretty clear when people fall asleep, okay, now they've gone over to Freddy's world. And then when they wake up, okay, they're grounded, everything, the walls aren't moving, there's no Snake Freddy hunting them. It's like, okay, now we're back in the world. In this show, they blend it so much where you're just like, are they awake? Are they asleep? It's so fucking confusing. And the amount of fucking false wake-ups they do in this show. Oh, I'm not doing a compilation, but like the amount of times somebody wakes up.
See compilation.
No. The amount of times somebody wakes up, oh, and then twist, they're still asleep. Oh my God. They overuse that so much that they overuse it to death. So like the result is it makes the episodes convoluted and hard to follow. So this episode is a fucking breath of fresh air because they're not nightmare sequences. They're just straight up normal dreams, and they're using a different mechanic. They're not trying to scare you. And it's very clear when she's awake and not awake. You know what I mean? Like, I agree with you. They show that dream 10 million times, but at no point does she wake up and go like, and then she sees like the little girl version of herself running around or some shit like that. It's like they don't pull any of that crap. It's very clearly she's asleep. Now she's time traveling. Now she's awake. Now we're going to see what happened from that. You know?
Yeah, I ranked this one at the bottom because I wish it were better than what we got.
I actually thought you would like this episode. I actually thought this was one of the ones you were going to like.
I like the concept. I'm just disappointed. And I think you might hear that word a few times. I'm disappointed with what we ended up with because it doesn't just suck. It's terrible because I could see where we could have got with this episode if they put a little bit more time and effort into it, but they didn't. So this is what we have. So, but I will say though, shout out to George Lazenby, who was the
I have that on my notes.
One-time James Bond actor George Lazenby.
Yes, renowned James Bond actor George Lazenby. Yeah, Her Majesty's Secret Service.
One and doneer.
Yeah. Oh, it only took one, buddy.
Yeah, that's it.
He knocked it out the first time. That was it. Yeah, he plays like the doctor.
Yeah,
he plays the doctor. I also want to give a shout out to the actress. Because it's the same actress in both plots.
Yep.
Amy is the character. The actress's name is Mary Conhart or Conhart.
Yep.
Mary Conhart. She's really good. And most of the actors in this show can't act.
Right.
She's one of the few that I think does a pretty damn good job. She's very likable. I think she's a likable protagonist. She's not like obnoxious. She's not annoying. She doesn't just cry and scream the whole episode. Yeah. I like that she tries to use her powers. Like, I don't know. I liked her character, and I like this actress.
She meant a lot to him.
I never knew her. Seems like he can never forget her. I guess that's the way it's supposed to be. But it's bad sometimes. He's all alone.
She didn't really do much else. One of her last acting credits was she played an ensign on 3 episodes of Next Generation.
Who hasn't?
Yeah, I know. Who hasn't been on Next Gen? Everybody. But yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
I will say, and I'm not sure if we're at this point yet, but this is one of the episodes where the B story really lets down the episode.
Right. So let's get to the B story.
Yeah.
The B story sucks shit.
yeah,
I appreciate kind of where it's going,
nope.
but
No.
okay.
It was okay. Go ahead. No.
I see. You thought the first part dragged. I think the second part drags. Okay, so the twist ending happens, and then what's funny is they just continue. So it's not like the second B plot is like, okay, Amy's gonna go back and try to save both her mother and her father. Nope, her dad's dead, and now she just lives with her mom, and she's like, well,
I'm done trying to change this.
she's like, well, no, she stops having
Yeah.
that dream and starts having another dream, but this is the reverse. So first she was dreaming about the past and she was trying to alter it. Now she's having prophetic dreams about the future. And she's dreaming about some it's like in a military base, and it's some military guy, Officer Skews, I've got written down here.
Yeah.
And it's like this just burnt out military guy that's like on his wit's end, and he's ready to just push the nuke button.
I do feel like that sometimes. Yeah.
That's partly why they got bonus points, because I was like, Mark. He's ready to push the nuke on all of us.
It also means anytime I see anything military related in anything,
You have to criticize
I
it.
scrutinize it a little bit tougher
More?
than probably. So obviously this, with its $7 budget,
Right.
just
That is exactly what a nuclear bunker would look like. You are
exactly.
nuts. It looks
Right.
like just some
Right.
office building, okay?
Right.
Okay. So she's having this prophetic dream about some military guy, and he's like, the dream is like, she keeps having this dream, but it's like they keep revealing more. But basically the dream is some military guy like burning out and going nuts and then like launching nukes. That's the dream she's having. She contacts the military. It's actually George Lazenby, I believe, that contacts the military for her. Doctors have this connection
Right.
somehow.
They
yeah.
know.
Yeah, they just have this connection.
Yes, get me Langley, Virginia.
And the military is interested in Amy because of her psychic abilities. So they actually believe her immediately because she's able to tell them one of the launch codes, and it actually turns out they check it and it was one of the launch codes. So they immediately are like, okay, we have to use this girl. We have to stop this from happening. And this is where the episode just drags, because it's just scenes of Amy sweating, sitting in a chair while military officers are around her being like, think, Amy, think. And they try different techniques. They like hypnotize her, I think, at one point. And they're just like, you got to give us more details. Give us more details. And it drags. Yep. And then at one point she goes into the same dream as the military guy, and like they're sharing a dream, and the military guy's dream is, I don't even know.
Doesn't make sense
The
now,
military officer, I don't really get his arc. It's basically he's just stressed and burnt out. That I guess it's a lot of responsibility, like being in a nuclear bunker. Like, cause he's in, or what would it be called? A silo? Like he's where they launch it, right? So he's in, I don't know what that you would call those.
I don't think anything like that actually exists, though.
Well, no, they must have had that during like Cold War and shit, like the two guys and where they have to turn the keys and all that shit. Wouldn't have been computerized.
No, but like sitting off on their own in like a dome in Siberia. I don't know. It just
I
seems,
don't know that. Yeah.
I mean, the thing for me was just that most of this 22 minutes is spent sitting around essentially a card table.
Right. Yeah.
I'm
Literally.
like, oh,
with Amy sitting in a chair. Yeah.
jeez. It's like, an episode of Golden Girls where they're all sitting around the table talking to each other is about as exciting as this.
It's literally just the military guys being like, think, Amy, think, we need you. We need more details. And then the military guys will talk to each other, and she's like sweating, and the military guys will talk to each other and be like, oh, okay, she gave us this detail. Now we got his name. Look that up in the database. There are 4 people with that name in the data, and it just goes on and on. But I love that ending.
That it goes off, right? Doesn't it?
No.
If I'm trying to remember
The
it,
ending is like, they get just enough information. They identify the officer. They identify where he's stationed, where he's working. They send in the MPs, the military police. He's barricaded himself in this like launch bay thing. He's like in this room where he can launch it, and he just goes insane for no reason. He just snaps, and he like aims a gun at like his coworker, the guy that like because it's 2 people have to turn the code.
Yep.
And he's like, turn the damn key, man. And he's like, you crazy, man. And then the MPs bust the door
Get in
open
there.
and then just machine gun him to death. and that's it. And then it ends with there's just a little setup line, which is like, oh, poor Amy.
Then we can start all over again tomorrow.
Again?
Just put it out of your mind for right now. We've got a couple of other things we'd like you to look into.
They're like, well, after that was so successful, we have a few other things we'd like you to take a look at, implying like she's now basically a tool of the military.
Right.
Yeah.
We have you forever.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. It should have been a different plot.
Right.
Or maybe even, honestly, the B plot could have just been her. They could have exacerbated the A plot and been like, okay, now maybe her ability expands a little bit and she's trying to get both her parents. Like ultimate goal should have been to get both parents back. Not this military plot crap. I don't know where this came from.
Or like if you're going to do the trying to find someone before time is up, you need to kind of stretch that out a little bit more, right? Do a little bit more with it. 22 minutes, it just felt rushed, which makes it sound more exciting.
Because
it's not.
Because it drags like fuck.
But,
yeah. Nah, it's just, the B plot sucks. But that's my number 5 best. That's my number 5 best. And that's your number 4 worst.
We're off to a good start.